This is the Fourth Part Podcast, a podcast made by Freemasons to be enjoyed by all. The opinions of the hosts and the guests are their own, and do not reflect any Grand Lodge stance or opinion. And now here are your hosts, the grumpiest past master, and the OG Danielson.
So what makes the perfect villain? We talk of Masonry. Because there are villains in the story, in the allegory, if you will.
So, man. All right, you could tie it into that. So, welcome everybody back to the Fourth Part Podcast.
Wagwan.
I'm your host, the grumpiest past master, and here is my co-host,
The OG Danielson.
So, who makes a good villain?
What makes a good villain? Can I finish it?
Yeah.
A good victim.
A victim like how, though?
So, again, a good victim is somebody in at least Masonic allegory, right? You make good men better. So, ultimately, anybody coming to the fraternity, you already have that, like, kind of concept already, like, in the bag. All right, this is a good man. Because we really don't attract too much trash. So getting into a good victim would be Hiram, would it not?
You need a protagonist,
Right?
to then, because does the Joker exist without Batman?
No, and I think Avengers said it. It was in the Avengers. Like we didn't start having all these problems until you guys showed up, because power begets power.
Right. There's something to then take.
Right.
So then the people rise up to then take it.
So that knowledge that said brother had, which was kind of pursued by the ruffians.
Is it power or is it knowledge? Because knowledge is power.
Ooh.
But it's knowledge. The human condition is that people want what other people have,
Right.
whether it's something tangible or not tangible.
Without the work.
Right. So without having to put the effort in.
Right. Minimum effort, maximum reward.
Masonry is kind of interesting in that aspect, in that there's only a little bit given to you. Like the lion's share of what you get out of Masonry is what you create.
What you put into it is what you get out.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a saying as old as time in Masonry. You go into a lodge and it's like going into a gym and looking at all the workout equipment and saying, "Where's my muscles?" You got to use the equipment. In Masonry, you got to use the members. You got to have those conversations. You see a brother sitting off to the side, make an effort to kind of, sit down and have a conversation. That's why, when you do the table lodge, that's a genius setup where it's kind of tavern style with the long tables. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is having the round tables where you have 6 chairs at each table. It's so separate.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, you had tavern style where you had even the ketchup was situated in a strategic way where you would have to say, "Hey, can you pass me the ketchup?" And then the guy would give you some smart ass from, "Oh, you like ketchup?" Something to the effect. But it was bonding in essence.
Right. It drives the conversation.
Absolutely.
It generates that conversation that maybe an icebreaker, call it.
Yeah.
It's
because I'm in need.
And that's kind of like what it's kind of what we do on the regular, and we generate these icebreakers in thought. You may hear something that you've never thought of thinking of, and Masonry shines a spotlight on and goes, "Hey, look at this. Have you ever thought about this? You may have, you may haven't, but this is something worth." This is something worth looking at.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't give you the full. It doesn't give you the answer.
Right.
It gives you the roadmap to a answer. not the answer.
Well, it's saying that there is something of value here.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look. And if you find it, then, you're worthy of that. And if not, then maybe next time,
Mm-hmm.
But absolutely, like, hey, listen, check this out. And that's where symbols kind of train your mind. As you walk through life, we kind of just like, we're always doing, right? We're not human doings, we're human beings. And we're always doing, but we forget to slow down and stop and observe. And knowledge is all around us that way. Get him. He's such a good dog. He's a good dog. Good dog. But yeah, to train the mind to find knowledge where others just see a void.
Yeah. Louis, I need to move my microphone, buddy.
No means no.
He's always wearing his tuxedo. He's always ready for a degree.
He's from Boston.
I want to say that I hate the term that Masonry is going through a distillation process.
What do you mean by distillation?
So people have asked, they're like, is Masonry dying? Is Masonry floundering? But it's not. And then some people say, no, it's not. It's going through a distillation process, meaning we're refining the membership we have to the most dedicated. But let me put it to you this way for people who like to indulge in drink. Would you rather drink a proofed alcohol aged in a barrel over many years to refine it to, like, I'm having Macallan 12 year. You're drinking Johnny Walker Double Black. Would you rather have a drink like this, which is much smoother, much more palatable? Or if I handed you 195 proof, corn whiskey, moonshine, jet fuel, what would you rather enjoy on a day-to-day basis? Would you want to say this is better because it's the most pure, but it's not palatable? So Masonry can't look at, like, yes, we're distilling. The people that are the brothers that are very into it, they're the most dedicated, but they're very strict, and there's no. And I'm not saying that there isn't beauty in these brothers. There is. They're very eloquent. You see it on TikTok and Facebook or YouTube and all these content creators of younger Masons that are bringing Masonry out into the world. Brother Tyler, Harper Crates, Brother Fluff. There's so many of these brothers out there that are spreading truth to what Masonry is.
Right.
But I think they're the exception to it. And then there's the hardliners that are just, this is the way it is. This is how we do it. Robotic. And there's no beauty into it.
Well, I think the beauty's there. I think if we're talking about alcoholic libations, I think, what do you like? Some people would choose the latter because they're drinking to get drunk. So the refinement aspect of it doesn't matter because they're not here for that. And Masonry attracts a lot of brothers that way, where they're just here for nefarious reasons, or they want to network. They just open up a business. Masonry is the type of organization where it's high in support. So ultimately, though, they're drinking that, which is the more beautiful drink, the more refined drink of Masonry. But they're drinking at such a pace, they're going to get drunk fast and time themselves out, right? As opposed to the brother who's more eloquent and enjoying the drink. The brother who takes his time and builds relationships. So I think...
Well, it's kind of where, and I'm sorry to cut you off.
Go ahead.
That's why we've usually ended our podcasts on, we hope that your journey through Masonry is aged in the barrel of life. And I usually end it that way because I'm alluding to the fact that don't be the instant gratification.
Right. Build
person.
something.
Let it age. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the journey. And be okay with the fact that this isn't going to be done in your lifetime.
No.
It's not going to be done in your kid's lifetime. You know, one of the most beautiful things in Masonry is, and you're lucky to have it, one of the most beautiful things in Masonry is having multiple generations of family present in a lodge at the same time. It's beautiful to have, you know, both my grandfathers were Masons. It's beautiful to have my great-grandfather and his great-grandfather. But to see multiple generations of the same bloodline
on the level
present at the same time, experiencing the same Masonry. And I say the same Masonry, meaning Masonry how it is at that time in the world. Right. How Masonry is interacting with the world at that period in time. Meaning in 2023, how Masonry is in New York, on Long Island in 2023 with everything that's going on in the world. Because Masonry was different in 1965, and different not only by time, but by region. So it's beautiful to see that, because you're now able to build off of your father's experience, your brother's experience. You know, let's say you have a brother whose father was a Mason. Mm-hmm. Your father is a Mason, but you guys kind of joined Masonry around the same time.
Right.
But let's say hypothetically, I'm 21 years old. My father is a Mason. We live in the same jurisdiction. We live, and we go to the same lodge. And his father, so my grandfather, is a member of that lodge, and he's still alive. Mm-hmm. What am I now as a Mason benefiting from? I'm benefiting from whatever I'm able to learn. I've benefited from what my father has learned since, let's say, hypothetically, he's been a Mason since 1985. Mm-hmm. And what he's learned and how Masonry has interacted with the world from 1985 to now. And then his father, who, let's say, he was a Mason since 1965. And he's experienced Masonry from 1965 to now.
Right.
And all that knowledge trickles down to you to be able to hewn your stone. Everything that they've learned, you're starting so much further down the line than most people get to, as opposed to starting fresh, an absolute raw stone from the quarry, and say, I have to start from scratch. So think of it in these terms. A Mason's looked at as a raw stone plucked from the quarry in its raw form, right? We're given a symbol in Masonry, the Lewis jewel. So the Lewis, which is for lack of a better term, it's a lifting device.
Right.
It's a tool that's used to lift large stones and place them into place. Okay. The Mason, who's in charge of using that tool, the Master Mason, who then uses that tool to help lift those stones and place them into their place in the building. When you become a Mason, the person lifting that stone is your person who's signing your petition, in a way, right? Mm-hmm. They're the one who's taking your stone from the quarry and saying, it's time to take this stone and put it into the building. If you are a legacy type of Mason, the Mason that's lifting that stone is far more experienced and knows what to look for in the quarry. This stone should already have a basis. It should be closer to
Right.
what we're looking for. Now, Masons who help cultivate new brothers, are very good at what they do, and they can kind of read through the kind of the BS of the world that people kind of put a front on to try
Absolutely.
to make sure they don't bring in a brother who's joining for the wrong reasons. But when you have several generations of the same family, they're able to say, this stone, I've hewn this stone before we've even started.
Yeah.
And it's kind of beautiful to see happen in a lodge. And I feel like Masonry needs to put a little bit more investment in the fact that the brothers that are joining here don't have that, and don't have the legacy type of knowledge of Masonry, meaning they grew up going to their father's lodge events,
Right.
and going to their grandfather's lodge events and have that experience to it. I feel like there's a little bit of a disconnect from what is expected of a new member and what is actually our responsibility to show them.
I think also too, like even with some of the new members, just a little bit unrelated to the legacy part, is just to touch back on the original reason why we're having this conversation about is Masonry dying or not. I think again, society tells you that you should have instant gratification. Right now, you have minimal effort for a strong reward, and I think the obligation of somebody saying, hey, listen, I chose to join here. I'm here now, but I'm not really getting out of it what I need. And then they kind of falter and they go out. I think the legacy part is, like you said, you have your father, your uncle, your brother, somebody who's joined Masonry prior to that. If you join this organization, you also have to uphold their name.
Okay.
So that's a little bit more of you're starting your journey, but you're still defined by whatever they've done in Masonry. So
there's some consequence,
right,
existing for those people.
Exactly.
Like, I'm going to let
so and so
down, whatever,
and I can't.
Mm-hmm.
But in this day and age too, I think we're having more of a reawakening as far as consciousness. Back in the day, a lot of the Masons that we define Masonry in this current state is brothers who have returned from war, or brothers who come from that legacy state. So you have brothers that join Masonry for the camaraderie, but not so much for spiritual teachings, which the camaraderie is a small portion of Masonry, but it's a large portion of the membership, ironically, in this day and age. And we've had those conversations where we've spoken to older brothers and we've said, hey, why did you join? And a lot of them have said, oh, because the camaraderie, and the charity. But that's really such a small portion of what Masonry is. You could get that in any organization. The symbolism, the ability to go through life with nobody else but yourself and your own consciousness and devoid of your mind. Those are the things that Masonry kind of it's always watering. The symbolism of it, the working tools, the metaphors, understanding that conflict and not getting your way are also rewarding once you do go through life and you do finally come to a point where there is a win. It's so much more worth it because you understood that, yes, as you were in the quarries hewing the stone, and once it's set, like the foundation is the most important part. You can put a beautiful structure on, a BS foundation that you rushed, but it's ultimately going to fall, where the foundation is actually the most important part of the whole structure.
Yeah. The cornerstone is where you make all your measurements from. That's what a cornerstone's used from. You set the cornerstone and you go, all the measurements for that building are going to come off of this stone. And masonry has, other symbols that, tools that are used. The skerrit. Ever talked to you about the skerrit?
Yeah.
The skerrit is like, it's basically a mason line, is used to lay that line across.
Yeah.
But I think it's more of a generational type of tool, right? We set the line for masonry at that time.
Yeah.
Because it's not a level. A level it's going to show you true level that it doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't change. It's time immemorial. Like it's always going to be level. Level's level. Is level to the earth. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change.
Right. It's
But
absolute.
a skerrit, right? It's a skerrit is used to set that line. It still has to be level
to the environment.
right? But to the environment at that time. Okay, we're going to build 12 inches of this wall, and we're going to set the line at 12 inches. And that's a generational type of tool, because the next generation we may set this line only 6 inches above where the level before existed, and that's kind of he's just attacking it. So the skerrit is more of a how we setting the line in the current world we're living in now.
Hey, you got
Plumb is an absolute.
Right.
Plumb is like it has to be plumb no matter what period of time we're in, because it's plumb to the earth. The earth doesn't change. But the skerrit could be set 6 inches from ground, 12 inches from ground, 2 feet from ground.
Right.
You still obtain level at that point. You're still measuring that line that you stretch at level and making sure it's straight all the way across.
Well,
the difference of height can be different.
Because it's almost like, well, like you said, if you're starting a building from scratch, then the level obviously is absolute because it's from scratch.
Well, that's
But I
what
think
that's where the landmarks of masonry. Right? They set that cornerstone in masonry and said, this is where we're starting from.
Right.
And that should not change.
But that cornerstone ultimately is you at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the skerrit is more, it's like if you're picking up somebody else's work, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Meaning,
like you're finishing off a legacy, if you will, or because they already started that building.
Right. Well, that's what I mean. It's like a generational thing.
Exactly.
So
I'm just clarifying.
Yeah. So if someone is setting the tone for masonry at that time, you're building off of that, right? So think of it as the row of the wall. The wall started as a cornerstone, meaning masonry in general. Started as a wall. They set the landmarks of masonry here, and we build off of that. Every generation is another layer on that wall. Mm-hmm. And we are expected, you set that next stone of the next generation, it's not a cornerstone, but it's the first stone of that generation is set, and everything comes off of that stone.
Yeah, it has to contribute to ultimately the whole. You know what's the most important working tool that doesn't get mentioned? The tool belt. Nah, I don't know. It should be one though. If you think about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It should be. Because it's like to take all your working tools and put them into a position where they're reachable. Right? The tool belt ultimately is the brain, if you will. Oh, I don't know. I'm just reaching.
No, that makes sense.
Think about it, right? And that's just, but again, that just goes to show how masonry takes the constant search of, okay, does this mean something else? The peeling back of a layer. A lot of times we take absolutes and we're just like, okay, this is what it is. But then you experience masonry and they'll say, oh, it's a beehive. Yeah, it's a beehive. Wait a minute. There's a industrious nature about it, and it tells you to kind of peel back a layer, and then also fit it for what it means to, metaphorically in your brain. So you can see anything in life and metaphorically, whether it's a response that somebody gave you, And I'm like, you know what? You really didn't mean that. Or a tool belt. And just to kind of have fun back and forth with brothers and say, hey, listen, that should be a working tool. It peels back a layer. You don't live life so much in a literary fashion. You have fun with it. And you go back to that skill back in the day, because ultimately, as a child, what made life so great? The imagination. We lose that as adults. Masonry kind of reintroduces that whole spectrum.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you this: how do you bring Masonry into the world? Is there one particular way that you overtly, not so consciously, not subconsciously, try to bring Masonry into the world that you're experiencing?
As far if you could just kind of clear it up, because I'm gonna give you some wild answer, so you got to kind of hone me in.
Okay, so when you are living day to day,
let's say I'm walking up a block with a friend or a coworker.
Okay, yeah,
We're going to lunch.
Okay, you're going to lunch, and you kind of experience something that is maybe there's a wrong that's being done.
Okay.
How do you, as a Mason, like to take? How do you then react to that?
Well, I think Masonry to me doesn't really establish my reaction to that. I think moral law and how I hold myself to a certain standard will kind of generate what my response would be to that. And Masonry kind of does capitalize on that. If you see a wrongdoing and you have, if your ability permits, then you should do something without putting yourself in a situation where you can't get yourself out of, putting yourself in harm's way. It is your responsibility, it's your duty to make a right out of a wrong. But as far as like day-to-day life and bringing consciousness out of Masonry, it's more like, recognizing symbols on the street. I'll be walking with somebody and I'll say, hey, you see that flower? What do you think that means? Oh, it's just part of the building. Yeah, but somebody consciously put that there. That was it was intrusive. It was a decision to say, hey, I'm going to put it there. What do you think that means? So that's the way I kind of like maybe bring Masonry to light to people who aren't really conscious. Because again, people just walk through life and unbeknownst to them, Masonry's all around them. Or even just God's consciousness. If you're walking past a store window, oh shit, there's a book open. Just pick a paragraph out of the book. Things are happening around us. And Masonry kind of gives you that consciousness or that awareness of, let me look around. Let me not just walk through life. Let me stop and absorb what's around me. But as far as wrongdoings and stuff like that, I mean, I think as a police officer, as a firefighter, any type of public servant, or somebody of high moral caliber, or somebody of responsibility, you're going to right that wrong within due bounds of what your ability permits. I hope I answered your question.
Deep questions.
I tend to I'm an overthinker. I'm a habitual overthinker. But that's what I love about Masonry. That's the calming part of it. Not only what is absolute and what they tell you certain symbols mean, but also what they could mean. Certain patterns in walking during ritual, certain things that are erected in the lodge. Hey, what could this mean? There's got to be a deeper meaning. And you gave me a shovel. I'm gonna keep digging.
Yep.
Because it's like you told me, all right, here's a shovel, and dig 10 feet. You're gonna find a working tool. Okay. What if there's something a little bit deeper? And then you just keep digging and keep digging and keep digging. And that's what life is, You go through life, and as you mature in your mind, you question all the answers until you find something that's more fitting and life makes sense to you. You can't go through life and, all right, this is what it is. Okay. You're a robot at that point. And I think that's what we've become as a society. We're force-fed information, and it's just over-information, and we move too much with the times. And I think it's very rare that you sit back and actually try to process what's going on.
Yeah, there's a definite absoluteness to the way that society is right now, where it's like it's either it's X or Y. It's, black or white. It's, whatever. It's there's right and there's wrong and there's nothing in between. And there's not. There's a lot of things in the world that can be looked at and kind of interpreted that's maybe a little off of the normal, it's this way or that way. And Masonry should teach you that there is a differing of opinion on certain things, but as long as it's grounded in the generality of what you're being taught,
Yeah.
you're on the right track.
Yeah, and even just the process of just thinking and not just processing.
Like Louis thinking right now,
Yeah.
he's judging you. He's like,
Judging, yeah. But that's consciousness. Like, what tells you, to wake up in the morning besides, you getting rest or whatnot. But, certain things that, like, what teaches a bird to fly? What gives it the confidence of that? These are things that are programmed into you. And I think in Masonry, it brings you back to that natural state of man. Of I have to affect this environment and I have to leave a little bit of me to be remembered, a little bit of legacy. I have to leave it, whether it's a stone structure, whether it's the memory that you leave on a person. One of the things I always was taught when I was growing up, and that kind of goes hand in hand with Masonry, is that, listen, tomorrow's not promised. Memento mori, right? You're going to die. You have a certain amount. Let's say the average person lives to 75 years old. 75 summers, 75 winters, 75 birthdays. You have a small amount of time to make this thing called life worth it. You got to fill the bag and leave your legacy. We're all forgotten. There's a few humans on Earth that, Julius Caesar's got a haircut named after him. That's a legacy. Forget Rome. He's got, let me get to Caesar. But, all jokes aside, to leave a little bit of yourself to the next generation and continue that's the beauty of it. And you should strive for that every day because you never know when the next opportunity could come.
do you think that people worry about being forgotten?
Some. And it's only...
It's ultimate. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
You're going to be remembered in your family for a few generations, but...
You're going to be forgotten. Within your funeral. I've seen it. How many funerals have we gone through for brothers where, you come in, oh, I'm sorry for your loss. All right, so, hey, did you see the Yankees? And ultimately you're forgotten. You're going to be forgotten. But that doesn't take the value of life away. It makes you question certain things. Like, hey, what is this? What's the point of all of this? And, the average plot is what, 200 years that you could buy? It's not, you can't buy lifetime plots anymore in the cemetery. You're going to be forgotten. And it makes that the next question after that is, okay, so what's the point? What's the point in doing good? What's the point in just, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. But then you have faith, right? That's why you can't be atheist to be part of this fraternity. The everlasting life of the soul. There's something after this. Everything is a step. It's this thing, living on earth as a human, that's one small step in the whole process of the spirit. You don't know where you were before this. You don't know where you're going to be after this. But in this point in time where I'm conscious of what I have to do, I got to do it, and I got to do it well. And I also have to live in a way that if this was a movie, it'd be worth watching.
Mm-hmm.
And we all fall short at times of our lives, but, you just got to do your best to kind of just understand that I may not understand it, but it doesn't matter. Just do what you got to do. And somebody, ultimately, like, right, Western philosophy, the way we think now, that was started by somebody. The guy who invented the shoelaces, I don't know his name, but his idea was bigger than him. So ultimately his influence continues, So I guess that may even be the goal, just to live life in a way that it's bigger than you, the individual.
It's a hard thing to do, like as a human, to be okay with the fact that you're only here for a small period of time, and you should only be concerned with what you're able to do for other people around you and not obsess about, I need to be remembered in this way or that way. I need my name on a plaque or whatever it is.
So do you think like some of these guys, like the big bankers and the Rockefellers, you think the Rockefellers' main driving thing, right? You,
He's killing us.
You think
you started talking about the Rockefeller, you got all juiced up.
The Rockefellers, the Vanderbilts, the Morgans, all of these founding fathers of American business in the industrial age. Do you think their driving factor was, I want money or I want to be remembered?
Oh, it's definitely, I want to be remembered.
You think so? It wasn't like the competition of, I want to be the next.
They wanted that status, that they become, immortal in a way.
Okay.
The money was part of it. Like, that's how you get there in their opinion, but I think that that was a big part of it.
I think that's lacking though in this day and age, wanting to be remembered. I think people are just living life unknown about what comes next, and they're just kind of going through the motions. Because a lot of time is wasted. A lot of time is just, especially with social media and just sitting down and, I want to be in my safe place, and not understanding that, in an uncomfortable situation, that's where maximum reward happens. I see too many people running from chaos or running from situations that they could thrive from, I don't know if it's not having the confidence. I don't know if it's not wanting to deal with the BS, but it may be even the reason why people don't even go to the gym. Like, I've been wanting to go to the gym for a minute, but I don't go. And it's not because, I don't have the time. If it was important enough to me, I would make time for it like I do everything else. But I know if I went to the gym, I know physically, if I put in the time, the feeling I would get back would be of high reward.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I take the easy way out and do the things that I do well effortlessly. Going to work, being a provider, those things are hard, but it's not hard for me to do because I enjoy them. But now the things that are hard for me to do that may be of maximum reward, I don't necessarily do, even though I know that if I did do them, I may feel a little bit better the next day. It's just, it's that consciousness of just going back and forth, wrestling around with your thoughts. I don't know. We talking.
I think that what Masons should remember is that it's okay to be just a worker in the quarry.
Yeah.
And don't worry about the pomp and circumstance. Don't worry about the titles, the aprons. And just
goes back to the ruffians.
Yeah.
Being a perfect villain, being a perfect victim.
Yeah.
It's wherever you are in life, enjoy that. A lot of times we strive for those things that we want so bad, and we're always worrying about the next step. But the current step we're in, previously, that was the goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we wanted that so bad. All right, now we're here. We don't enjoy it. We're worried about the next step. And in life, life is too fast that way. You got to kind of, take time for gratitude and sit there and, absorb the hard work and where you're at right now. And you have to work for the position you want in the quarry, but ultimately appreciate where you're at, because again, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. So, like you said, if you're just a worker at that point, if your position in the quarry is just a move stone, just do it well.
Right.
And doing that will afford you the opportunity to do better things in life.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times, like,
it's just hard for
ruffians,
people to
right?
be content in what you have and where you are.
Absolutely.
And like you said, do it as best as you can. at that moment. That's the hardest thing. So I think we'll wrap this one up here.
That was a good one.
And may your cornerstone ever be level, square, and true. And may your journey through Freemasonry be aged in the barrel of life.
And always stay of service to your surroundings. Continue to thrive.
Safe travels.
Safe travels. What's up, pup? I speak dog.